Welcome back. Today we're going to do a quick one on the Letshuoer S08. So this is their brand new 13mm planar set. I thought it was quite unexpected. I certainly wasn't expecting a new planar set. I don't know, not that close from S15, but I guess it's been a little while since S15. But yeah, it kind of caught me off guard, and certainly when I put it in my ears, I think it really caught me off guard. I don't think I was really expecting the set. Definitely wasn't expecting the tuning that they used. So yeah, we'll call this one very unexpected. But I do like the shells. I think they are very cool. I think Letshuoer does very nice shells. They certainly do very nice cables, and this is no different. A nice dark copper, modular, nice 2-pin. These are actually right angle 2-pin, which is pretty cool. You don't see this every day, but for those of you who are into cables, this angled 2-pin is not something that you see on many sets, but Letshuoer has been doing that style for a while, and I think it's kind of nice. Instead of doing QDC that's angled, they do a straight 2-pin, so pretty cool. Nice box, nice shells. You do get their case, which they've been using on some recent sets. Nice tip set. You get the other modular termination. So all this is very, very nice and typical with what Letshuoer has been doing lately. This one is priced a little bit lower. I think it's actually retailing for $99. I know on AliExpress, if you catch the sale, it has actually been lower. I think if you had coupons and coins and everything else, I think it was about $80. But I think the retail price is going to be about $99. So you might want to wait for a sale if you're interested in picking it up. You can get it for a couple dollars cheaper. So let's kind of start at the beginning, why I like planars. And I think planars for the past couple of years have really been this trade-off of text and timbre, right? These planar sets that we've had all the way going back through Timeless and S12 and S12 Pro, very, very technically capable, very high resolution, lots of detail, lots of great extension, speed, detail, all those things. And I think they've given you that, and then along with that came a little bit of planar timbre that kind of annoyed some people. If you were into very, very natural sounding sets, it's a little bit harder to get all the amazing text with a very natural sounding planar. And I think companies and brands have been working on that for a couple of years at least. So that has been the trade-off in the past, but not everyone really cares about super technical things. Some people care less about those texts and would rather have just a nice, warm, natural, non-fatiguing planar, and that's kind of exactly what S08 is. So if you are looking for all the technical bits, that's not, go back and look at S12 or S15. This one is very much tuned for people who may want to experience planar drivers, but are really more concerned with a non-fatiguing, relaxed, warm, bassy sound, as opposed to. So this trade-off isn't so much about S8 as it was about S12 and S15. This one, I would call this the opposite trade-off. They basically gave you a more natural, smoother sound at the expense of all those techs. This is for people primarily interested in nice playback at a nice price. The S08 is for you. If you want the full planar experience, again, as I said, that one is probably closer to S12 Pro or S15. That is kind of the full-blown, has some planar timbre, a little bit bright, but you get amazing resolution and detail and speed and extension and everything that you were expecting from a really nice planar driver. But as I said, not everyone cares about those things. And a lot of what S08 is going to come down to is, should I buy Delchi, which is another warm, smooth, bassy set, or S08? And I would say you can sort of interchangeably buy them. If you really like the shells on S08, if you like the cable, if you like these accessories and you're willing to pay a little bit more, I think this is kind of a wise choice. But on the graph, you can kind of see they're similar, not quite the same. Delchi has about the same amount of bass, but when you take into account this kind of relaxed, darker treble that you get on S08 in the red, this will sound bassier because there's less treble, and the two combination, they sort of are additive. So less treble contribution, more bass contribution on S08. Delchi is actually a quite nice balanced tuning. I think people have found it, very pleasing over the past few months since it's been released. S08 is more of definitely a bassier sound and definitely a darker. If the Delchi tuning actually you were worried about it being a little bit too bright for you. It actually hits the Harman curve right there at about 5K, 4 to 5K. Then S08 is pretty much what you want as far as a very non-fatiguing, non-sibilant, non-peaky. It's just a very, very, borderline dark style treble. So sound, I would say S08 sounds like it was tuned from feedback from about 2 years of people complaining about planars. All those complaints that go back, all the way back to the original Timeless and S12, too bright, too flat, planar timbre, not warm enough, all those things that we've been hearing for a couple of years. Letshuoer definitely tuned this one so it sounds closer to a dynamic driver, and perhaps to really segment the market into, how do you kind of segment, should you buy S12 Pro, S15, or S08? And I think they clearly tune this one in a way so that there wasn't that much confusion. This is very much for people who are looking for something that sounds closer to a dynamic driver. S12 Pro, S15, those are very high-end style, planar sounding sets. And, I would say that there's a very clean line of division there. If you care about planar technicalities, you're going to go look at those other sets. If you're just looking for a nice playback set with a nice shell, really nice cable, then you're pretty much in S08 land. So bass, and I'll say this was probably my least favorite part right out of the box. And there was just a density to the bass. There's a heaviness to the bass that wasn't so planar attractive to me. And I've heard a few planar sets, and I think there are shades of good planar bass and less good planar bass. And this one, it was a bit too heavy, too thick. I think planar bass really can slide between balanced armature bass and dynamic driver bass, but it sounds better with some air to it. It should be a little less dominant. This one should be less heavy, as planars can do the entire range really, really well. That's what planars are really good at. But as soon as you sort of throw the balance off in such a heavy bass and such a dense bass, it sort of loses, again, it loses a little bit of its planarness, and it also kind of takes on sort of the imbalance that Delchi actually did quite well. Delchi is sort of just over the line, I would say. For me, it was just over the line on just a hair too much. And then this is kind of a step or two above that. So that's why I said between the two, if you're more into bass, I think S08 will be a really bassy set. Delchi is kind of like, like a little bit more bass and that style. But this one, it was definitely my least favorite part. I kind of wish they had cut back on that. And the treble, again, when you think about the treble, this one is tuned. There's a pretty dense piece of foam in this one, and that is how they got the treble down and the brightness down and the fatigue down and the sibilance. All that stuff disappeared with a nice piece of foam, and that magic really removed all those complaints from past sets, the brightness and the flatness, and even the thinness that you get on some planar sets that you find in other planars. But it also removed really that top-end sparkle, and it really colors it in a darker way. Again, I wouldn't say this is necessarily unique to S08. There are other sets who do tuning very similar to this. But, I think there's a kind of a goal there of removing the brightness, removing any kind of timbre problems. And you see this kind of tuning with hybrids, actually. It's not all that frequent, but you do see it. And it just ends up removing some problems that you get on a balanced armature, some fatigue that you might get from some peaks in the treble, and definitely sibilance. All those things kind of go away when you throw some really heavy dampening in the treble area. That's exactly what they did on S08. So when you think about the mids are this combination of this heavy, thick bass, this darker style treble, and you end up with mids that are kind of the same way, right? You have this combination of a dark sound and a heavy sound, so you end up with mids that are heavy and thick, and that's exactly what they sound like. And just as planar bass needs a little bit more air, I think the mids don't take kindly to such heavy dampening. Planars can really handle amazing dynamics and range with the speed of a balanced armature, but without the balanced armature timbre, and that's, again, kind of why I like planars in that respect. But when you clip the treble, make it a little darker as they did, it kind of leads the mids that are less transparent, less clear, less open. There's a very closed-in sound here on the S08. In that state where you really want to turn it up in volume to hear more, like you kind of think that there's more detail there or more resolution there if you just have a little bit more volume. but you just never quite get there, and the dynamics aren't there, and there's a lot of foam there. It really keeps you from kind of achieving what you want to hear. You'll kind of end up just turning up the volume and never quite get there. So also the reason why I would say EQ doesn't necessarily work here, because of the foam that's in there. You'll kind of look at it and say, well, if I just add a little EQ to the treble, but it doesn't quite get there, you'll kind of end up boosting it in a pretty serious way. And that's kind of what I did as well. And I wouldn't say that was all that successful, and that's why I'm not going to talk about that. But again, the S8 isn't really unique here. I would call this very much a timbre priority set. Make it sound nice and natural, but not necessarily as if you were in the room. Nice playback, but not necessarily the full IAM experience that you might get on some of their other sets. And stage, very much as you would expect. Without that top end and air, you're going to have some width, but it's mostly an in-your-head experience. There's just a lot of bass, not enough treble. A lot of that doesn't really project. It kind of leads you to a stage that is going to be okay, but I think it's exactly as you would expect from a tuning in this style. So that is what I got on the S08. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.